And we're live.
Woo!
Hello, Ned.
Hello, Nate.
Okay, this time around, I think we're going to try to introduce ourselves before we get rolling
Oh yeah.
on things we're talking about. I want to make sure that link I shared actually went somewhere. Yes, it definitely did. And we're live. Oh shoot! Now it's okay. There we go.
Inception.
Yeah, I just incepted myself just a little. Um,
Yeah. This is KordKutters. It's a show about people going around cutting cables out of the ground and selling it for copper,
yes.
or not.
No, that's about right. We're actually a mining organization. It's a really it's bringing people back into the important world that we live in. Um, well, at the moment we have 0 viewers, but that's okay
Oh.
because you can watch later. It's possible that link may not have gone out yet.
I see it on Facebook.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Oh, hey, I'm on there on the thing. That makes me self-conscious.
You're on the post?
No, I'm just on the video. Like my face popped up, and I was like, ah.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, regardless of number of viewers, I guess we can go ahead and get started since this is going to be recorded and for posterity, people will be able to see all the things that we talked about.
Yeah. Sounds
Okay,
good to me.
okay, so what would you like to talk about first? We have kind of a bunch of hardware things we want to talk about. This and the skin thing; those are all things we can kind of get started. Do you want to start with the skin?
Okay, yeah. Basically, last night actually, I came across something really cool. Let's see if I can bring it up here. This actually comes from Reddit on the Raspberry Pi Reddit. Where is the screen share? Capture. That's what I want, right? No, screen share.
Oh yeah, you didn't want capture.
All right, I think that's doing it.
Yep, that's
Can
it.
you see? All right, here we go. Uh, Basically, uh, it's a whole little project set up for a car PC using a Raspberry Pi and a small touchscreen monitor. Let me see if I can find some pictures here. And there's a couple reasons why this is cool. Number one, it's using Kodi. Uh, and number two, it's a pretty slick setup. A lot of people have been doing little car PCs forever. Um, and the big barrier with Kodi being used in that kind of situation is no one's really made a skin for a small car. The best we have is like a tablet skin, which is about it's fairly usable on a 7-inch screen, uh, but it's still kind of it's not really something you want to use in a car.
Right.
And so this is a small screen skin that can work with touch, and it's not just the skin either. There's a whole project here that this is really neat. That this guy and some other guys, I'm reluctant to try to pronounce his name because I'm horrible at that. But Andre, uh, I I'm just gonna post a link because I'm gonna insult this guy
That
if I
sounds like
try to
a
say his name.
much better plan. Yes.
Yes, but this is the car PC thing. There's another thing though. Why this is cool is not only did he make a nice interface based on the touch skin, or another guy involved with this did that. This skin works really well on phones too. Surprisingly, it's kind of the same principle where you'd need something that's smaller than a tablet and still gives you all the controls you need.
Yeah, when you pointed it out to me yesterday, that was really the reason I was kind of pumped about it, just because it was so it was so cool seeing a skin that would actually work on something like my iPhone or just any kind of phone.
Uh-huh.
You don't see that very often.
No. And I always thought if someone had done that, it'd be really great because it kills two birds with one stone. Yeah, there's the player interface.
Yeah, that's a nice screenshot you got there.
Oh yeah.
So are those buttons pretty big on the like when you're using them on your fingers? Are they pretty big for when you're using a smaller phone?
Yes, they're very usable. There's been some other efforts that people have done to do this, like here in the retouched subforum, you can see a guy went in here and just kind of went through and did a real quick button enlargement.
Oh.
And it's not quite as polished, but you know, this guy he did it, and he did it for the sort of the same thing. He's got a car unit he talks about in his post. But what's nice about this car PC project is it's got a bunch of people using it, so it's going to be continued to be improved.
Yeah.
So both the skin and the other portions of it.
Do you know what's going on with that radio thing there? I've never actually managed to get radio working on Kodi at any point in my life, so I'm kind of curious how he's got that working.
That's it. He actually has an add-on he wrote for that, which is really cool. I
really?
actually just ordered just today the little module that you need to hook into the GPIO pins on the Pi.
Yeah.
And it's a little FM modulator. You can get it off of eBay for about $12-15. And then he made an add-on for it that interfaces with it. And yeah, because I don't think it's using like PVR has radio support in it, but I don't think it's using that because I don't think any of the tuner hardware that interfaces with PVR works with the FM band that we use in the US. So it might work if you're in Europe.
Right.
You can get more radio stations over the tuner hardware. But it's really cool. You can even because it is a touchscreen, and people are like, "Oh no, touchscreens in cars!" But you can actually go in and hook in physical controls, rotary controls, buttons to control both Kodi and all the different things. He's also got it hooked into some open source navigation. I forget exactly what he's using on there, but it's a really cool project. Even if you don't have a car, check it out for the skin. The skin's pretty well done. It's obviously intended for car use, but it's very usable on anything that's a small screen.
Huh.
So we'll have a link to this in our description somewhere or something.
Yeah. And when you were navigating, or at least you're navigating to this page, it looks like all you really have to do is go to the retouched subforum on our forum, and then there'll be a link there that you posted already.
Yeah, and I'll probably also put up a link on our Raspberry Pi wiki page, which I've been expanding to include some not just normal Kodi stuff, but some more exotic stuff like all the retro
dancers, like dancers.
Yes, dancers and all
good.
that.
That's good to hear. Very
like
good to hear.
The retro software, like this is there's RetroPie and there's Recalbox and their emulator things that you can sort of all in one packages. It's got the operating system and everything all set up, and you can also install Kodi on there. So especially on the Raspberry Pi 2, which has a lot more processing power. I don't understand why web pages have loading screens. Okay, we'll get out of that. Let me get back into. Is the camera on? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the Raspberry Pi and Kodi, like that car project and stuff. So we'll have a link on our forums. We'll have a link on the Raspberry Pi page in a moment here, and yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so that's cool. I guess we may as well move on to the next thing. And there are a lot of next things. One thing I didn't remember to put in to our notes yesterday, but I think we probably should mention, is the Silicon Dust Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, it just passed its mark too.
That's right. It just tipped. It's now at 104,000. So now all they have left to do is get to 100 and whatever, 150,000.
150, and it's trending right now to be like 3,000 or something, 300,000, I think, if it keeps up the same momentum.
Right. Well, that would be pretty cool if it did. Mostly, I don't really care once it gets past 150, but 150 would be pretty cool.
Yes, because of the stretch goal.
Yeah. So for people who are watching who don't know what we're talking about, here, maybe first I'll start by linking to the page. What did you use? Screen share? Oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So Silicon Dust, who makes a HD home run, a couple weeks ago we wrote about how they had created a just an add-on for us for Kodi that lets people watch TV live, but it doesn't integrate into the DVR, and it doesn't do any DVR things.
Yeah. They make tuner boxes.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, it's basically a network tuner. You can either hook in your cable or your aerial antenna, and then any computer on the network can access the TV signal.
Right. So, oh wait, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I hit a button. So, what's really cool now is they have oh shoot, here someone's coming into my room. It's probably my niece.
Oh no, I have that same problem.
Yeah. So we yeah, Alex, I'll be right back with you. Okay, go tell Grandma that I'm on the computer. Okay. There we go. So anyway, yeah, there we go. There we go.
On the phone.
Yeah. So anyway, we were working on this DVR. They were working on this thing, and they were the conversation kind of turned to making a DVR project that's purely software based. And my understanding is this extension wouldn't be able to, unless I'm mistaken, it doesn't integrate directly into our DVR software. What it does is it kind of extends the add-on that already exists.
Is that their plan?
Well, I could be wrong about that. That's
I was a little unclear about that because yeah, there's you can definitely set up the existing HD home run products into a normal PVR backend to record and stuff, but it's very it's not too difficult, but it's not exactly easy. Not really. They're aiming for a solution that's a lot more user friendly. So whether it's integrating into our internal live TV features or is more of their own add-on, I'm not sure, but hopefully it'll be easier to manage recordings than, say, setting up Myth TV or one of the other ones.
Yeah, I think we can say without question, whatever it is, it's going to be easier to set up than Myth TV.
Yes. Much love to Myth TV, though. It's a very powerful software, but it is a little overwhelming.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone talks about how difficult it is. There is, every time we go to a conference, there's always at least someone talking about how once it's set up, it's amazing, right? It's just getting it set up that's the trick.
Yeah.
So moving on. After that, I guess we can go straight into talking about all the hardware that we want to talk about today.
Okay.
I'll get started with this right here. I don't know how much you can see that. This is a Raspberry Pi case. It's not super noteworthy, other than the fact that it's made by the guys who make Flirk, which we've talked about Flirk already, haven't we? If not, if you're watching this, you don't know what Flirk is. That is amazing. I don't know how you're in a very special subset of people. Flirk is just it's a dongle or a remote adapter that lets people use any remote control with their Kodi box. Ned's got one right in front of us.
I'm doing it to my laptop camera, but this is the other camera. But yeah, it basically learns infrared signals and translates them into keyboard presses. So it requires no drivers, and all your settings are saved on the dongle.
Right. So the reason I'm bringing this up is just because this week a bunch of Kodi team members got one of these things or will be getting one of these things. So we're pretty pumped about it. Ned isn't, because Ned believes that you should be able to see the Raspberry Pi.
I like seeing the guts.
Yeah, he likes to see the guts, but everybody else thinks it's pretty cool.
Well, no, it's cool. It's cool. I might pick one up later.
Okay. Did you? I just have written down Ned's hardware thing. I don't remember what that is.
Yeah, I can go in a little bit about that. It's if you ever follow any of the various Raspberry Pi project stuff, especially if you follow any of the stuff where people make their own kind of handheld consoles and little retro emulator projects, you've probably seen people take a Raspberry Pi and make their own Game Boy or Dreamcast, whatever, handheld. Well, I saw the other day, a while back actually, a few months ago, a guy did a really nice project using a Nintendo Game Boy, whoops, there's the case, Nintendo Game Boy Advance case, just like that, except this is just the casing here. And he stuffed in there a Raspberry Pi compatible board. This is not actually a Raspberry Pi. It's a clone of the Raspberry Pi called the Odroid W. They don't make them anymore. They only had a limited run on them, but it's the same processor as the Raspberry Pi, and it's even got the same header pins for the GPIO. And you can literally take your SD card out of a Raspberry Pi and stick it into this, and it'll boot it up just the same. So,
does this work with the Raspberry Pi or the Raspberry Pi 2, or the original card?
This is based on the original Raspberry Pi, unfortunately. So it's a little slower, but it's fast enough for emulators and a little bit of Kodi usage.
Yeah.
So, and this basically allows it to fit into the what is this? This is like the Game Boy Advance SP model with the flip-up screen, because before you couldn't actually fit a Raspberry Pi board into this. So I saw a guy, he did all that, and then his website, or the website he posted it to, the forum, went offline, which was I forget what the forum was called, but it was a well-known modder forum. So all the instructions went offline right as I started this project myself. So I'm hoping I'm following what someone else did, but I'm hoping to document it. So if anyone else wants to do it, but the idea is I'll have a little portable game emulator system that also runs Kodi, and will be battery powered. And it'll be a little hard to replicate this exact thing because they're not selling the Odroids anymore. But you can get a number of various other small ARM type boards, especially like little Android sticks. People have been opening those up and stuffing them into stuff. So hopefully a lot of this is still usable, even if you can't get a hold of the clone product here. So we'll have some links for that. And if anyone comes across any other cool stuff, because it seems like with all the mini PCs and Android boxes we have now, people aren't doing as many cool hardware stuff with Kodi anymore. But there's still some good ideas out there. So if people watching this come across any, let us know and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we have a couple of questions we want to get to from last week that people posted, but we'll get to those a little bit later.
People watched us last week?
Probably not. They probably just decided to ask questions and maybe, because the internet is the way the internet is. Okay, so by the way, thanks 5 viewers for being the 5 viewers that we have. So next, I want to talk about a little piece of hardware that we don't have access to at the moment, but I think sounds like it's going to be really cool. It's the Pulse 8.
Yeah.
The Pulse 8 Nook adapter, which allows anybody who has a Nook, and I think it's at the moment it's all the past generations. The very most recent generation, which I don't know if is actually being sold at the moment. All the past generations have a header that all you have to do is plug it in, and you're done. You don't have to have like a USB converter or anything. And it lets you control the Nook using your TV's HDMI CEC controls rather than needing an extra remote control. Which I think is a really cool idea. I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know you could control. Oh, yep, there it is. I didn't know that you could control a box that didn't have CEC controls built into the HDMI. In this way. I thought you would need a USB controller, but evidently not.
Yeah, it requires a motherboard that has, I'm trying to find the name of it. It's a connector that Intel has on certain motherboards that allow you to hook into various things, including the CEC pins on the HDMI cable or port. You could do this before with Nooks and the old internal CEC adapter, but you would have to you had to do some weird stuff. You had to solder it, and this is this is a new product that doesn't require any of that butchering. You can
right.
safely stick that in there. For some reason, though, like you were saying, the newest model of Nooks do not have this header on their motherboard for some reason.
Yeah. With that said, I talked to we're friends with one of the guys who makes this, and it sounds like there's still a way to connect it to those newer Nooks. It's just a little bit more work, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that way is. I think once I'm planning on getting my hands on one sometime soon. So at that point, maybe I'll be able to give a better idea of exactly what's going on.
Okay. It sounds like the header might not be soldered on, but it's still there.
Right.
Which is still cool because if you don't know, normally you have to have this little box to make it work. Let's see here. Get it up on the screen.
The USB CEC adapter. And we've actually featured that in our blog before. In the Cody blog before. And it's noteworthy that this is like twice as expensive as that other one. So if you have a Nook and you're kind of debating between the two, I feel like the other one's the obvious way to go at this point.
Yeah. It's one less dongle hanging off your system, and it's cheaper and makes it for a nice slick look.
Right.
Because normally the only other hardware that has CEC is ARM based. It's either like Raspberry Pi or Android boxes. So if you want something that has like an Intel processor into it, you have to get the adapter, and this lets you do the adapter internally. No extra. It still plugs directly into the HDMI port.
Yeah.
You don't have to go between the box or anything like that. So it's really slick.
It's too bad more motherboards, like for real big computers. I guess real computers probably not the word I'm looking for here, but for like gaming PCs and things like that, it'd be cool if you could do that with those. It's too bad you can't.
Yeah. Well, you might if you have the motherboard header, but for some reason it's just not very common, and I think it's a chicken and the egg problem where no one wants to add it to their motherboard for the additional cost because not a lot of people are using it, but not a lot of people are using it because it's not available. So it's really cool, though. It lets you use less remote controls in your living room. It could also do stuff like automatically switch the input on the TV or your sound system. It basically lets everything that's hooked up via HDMI talk to each other and control each other. So it's a really cool technology. It's been around for a while, too. It's surprising that a lot of people don't know this because a lot of people have it on their TV and didn't realize it. Like they'll plug in a Raspberry Pi or an Amazon Fire TV stick into their TV that has CEC support, and all of a sudden they notice that their regular television remote is controlling whatever they plugged in.
Yeah.
And it's a nice surprise.
As far as I know, the only other thing out there that has any kind of CEC support are some Blu-ray players. Like I think actually the PS3 had CEC support too. And I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think the Amazon Fire stick, and maybe the Amazon Fire itself, because they're probably basically the same thing, I think they both have CEC support to some extent.
Yeah, they have very basic support. They don't have quite the same support as the adapter and the Raspberry Pi do, where you can actually map buttons, but they'll usually give you at least directional control, select, back, and menu, which is the basics you need to control Kodi and most stuff.
Yep. That context menu, man. Without that, it is a real pain in the butt to set anything up these days.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Now I want to talk about the main thing I want to talk about this week, which is crazy because we're already at 36 minutes, and I want to limit this to 45, but maybe we'll make it an hour. Oh wait, we started late, so we're not really.
Oh, good.
So what I really love to talk about this week is Google Summer of Code and the people that we accepted in their projects. So let me go ahead and share that screen. This is a screen that only I can see because I'm a super powerful administrator, but I'm sharing it for the whole world today. So the 4 projects that we accepted, and let me start out by saying this was a tough year. We only had 6 mentors that could accept projects in the first place, and we were ultimately only given 4 slots. So even all the mentors, there were at least 2 more projects that we wanted to do that we just couldn't do because we weren't given enough slots. So ultimately, it came down to a combination of what the team thought was most important. There was a lot of voting going on that way, combined with people that the mentors thought they might have the easiest time working with or connecting with or whatever. And these are the 4 projects we ultimately settled on. And I'm going to be posting a blog post about this later today. So if you read that first, then you can just turn your ears off from this if you're watching it later. The four projects are: first, creating cross-platform room correction for Kodi, which is a really cool project, and I didn't even know it was possible. Essentially, all you do is you put a microphone in the middle of your room. It's pretty much, if you have ever used a modern AV receiver, then this is exactly the same concept. You put a microphone in the middle of the room, and then you turn it on, and you let the receiver figure out what the best sound is for that room.
Yes.
Evidently, you can do that whole thing in software, which is what this person, his username is Whistler. I forget what his real name is. Let's see. Achim. Oh man, I'm sure I screwed that one up. But evidently, you can do the whole thing in software, and it's a really cool idea that I didn't realize was even an option in Kodi. Next up. These 3, well, let me do the next one that I consider probably the most important, but also the one that our users are going to think is the most boring. Better profile support.
Woohoo!
Yeah. For anyone on our side of the fence, this is huge. And at the moment, Kodi's profile support is the worst thing ever. It's basically just a file folder. If you're in one file folder, then you're in one profile, and if you're in another, then you're in another, and there's no way for those two to talk or do anything else.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. So a guy named Dave Hand, I'm pretty sure I didn't butcher that one, has offered to work on that, and it sounds like he's got a lot of background in databases and everything like that. So he and Sasha Mondeleza are working on figuring that out this summer. The next two are much more exciting for users, though they're a little bit more question marky as to whether they're ultimately going to, get PR'd into Kodi, just because they're a lot more work, and they're
big projects.
Yeah, big projects. So the first one is NVIDIA Game Stream. If you're familiar with the NVIDIA Shield, one of the coolest things you can do with it is if you have a gaming PC set up somewhere in your house, you can use the Shield to play those games anywhere else in the house. If you have a tablet, you can just play it on the tablet, or you can hook it up to your TV or whatever. The idea of this is to use an open source library called Limelight, which makes use of the NVIDIA Game API to make it so that any box, not just Shields, can tap into that live play. Okay. So the idea here is basically, the idea here is basically any Kodi box out there, even on a Raspberry Pi or whatever, will be able to play full PC games based on a fully powered PC gaming computer, which I think is just a really cool idea. People who have looked into it think that the biggest issue is going to be latency. There's a concern that because of how Kodi's DVD player, which is the name of our video player, because of how it operates, we're worried that the latency will be so high that it won't be useful for Twitch gaming, and that's probably more accurate than not, honestly. But we'll find out as the summer progresses.
Yeah, that'll be one of the challenges for this project.
Yeah, it'll be a major challenge. The final project that we picked is on-the-fly transcoding, which has easily been one of the things requested of us most since who knows when, since probably 2009. And the whole point of it is, to do the same thing that all the other servers out there do. To take a video file or an audio file in rare cases, and make it playable on pretty much any device. So if we have a file encoded in MPEG-2, and you haven't paid for the MPEG-2 license on your Raspberry Pi, then in theory you could have a much more powerful PC in another room, transcode it to H.264, and then send that video onto your Pi, so you wouldn't need to deal with any licensing issues.
Yeah, and it's also a much smaller video stream, so it works better over Wi-Fi.
Right.
You can potentially use it over the internet. Lots of stuff. It's really makes kind of grinds up anything you put into it and spits out a transcoded stream that will work. Right.
Absolutely. The issues that at least some people think could come up with this are entirely due to the way Kodi is built. Right now, Kodi's the architecture underlying Kodi is kind of it's based in 2003 technology to some extent. There's still quite a lot that comes from way back when we were an Xbox, and we're kind of moving away from that whole mindset to a much more modern architecture for the project, but we're not really there yet. And the concern is that this transcoding won't fit into that modern architecture. And I apologize ahead of time for anyone listening who knows what I'm talking about and knows the right way to say it. That was not it. but that's what the goal is, to make it to fit into our current architecture.
Yeah, that's why these kind of things are chosen sort of for like Google Summer of Code. These aren't really like your casual on the weekend projects. And yeah. Google Summer of Code allows students to work on these projects with some mentors and they get a little bit of money for it, so they can afford to do that over the summer rather than have to take a summer job. And in the past, we've got some really good major milestones out of Google Summer of Code, I think. So they're like presents. Each project is like a present.
That's right. We're definitely always very excited to see anything come out of them. So that's Google Summer of Code this year. We're pretty pumped about it, and I'll try to keep everyone updated a little bit more than we have in the past, just because I'm frankly really excited about all 4 of these projects. So if they're doing well, then I want to talk about them. Next on the list is Bitcoin. One of our team members, Kib, who's kind of in charge of the server and a lot of the back-end architecture for actually getting Cody out to people, wants to note that he set up Bitcoin payments if you want to donate that way. If you're not a big fan of the American dollar or the euro or any denomination of money that's not technological in nature, then I guess this is the way to donate if you want to go down that road. A lot
more successful than taking Farmville credits.
Yes,
we did a few years back. That didn't work.
Yeah, we definitely still don't accept Farmville credits and Dogecoin. I don't actually know what Dogecoin is, but we don't accept it.
Oh, you don't know what it is? It's the future.
Don't. Evidently, it's the future. All I know is that it's a funny way for dogs to talk. That's Doge, not Dogecoin. Okay, so that's been this week's show. I guess now we're going to throw it to question and answers. Next week, if you have any more questions, feel free to submit them in the comments below, and we'll try to get to them. And actually, if you had any questions this week, I was kind of trying to look and see if anyone had written any comments, but it doesn't look like it. Given that there are only 4 or 5 viewers throughout this whole thing, there were 8 for a while. That makes sense. So next week, if you have questions or comments, let us know. But anyway, the 2 questions we have this week, oops, wrong page. The 2 questions we have this week are, first, will Cody's server support the Synology NAS? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. For those who don't know, we're working on making a version of Kodi that's headless, which means that it doesn't need any kind of OpenGPL or DirectX to run. It'll just run in the background without
GUI, right?
What's that?
GUI.
Yeah, right, exactly. It won't need any kind of GUI to run. Yeah. And that means that it can run on much weaker software or much weaker hardware, and it can run on all kinds of servers that it wouldn't normally be able to run on. Frankly, I'm most excited about it because I want it to run on my home theater PC, which is this big honking monster of a machine, but I want it to run in the background. So that's why I'm excited about it. But a lot of people are excited about it because they want it to run on NASes. The theory is that it probably will be able to run on things like the Synology NAS, just because it should be light enough in terms of requirements that it shouldn't have any problem. But in order for that to happen, it has to be built for that OS. And I understand the Synology uses some sort of unusual OS. So I guess step 1, once we get it up and running, we'll have a better idea of whether we can build for that platform. And until then, just keep an eye on the headless thread in the development area. Don't write in it unless you need to. Just keep an eye on it. The next question is, will we ever get the HTML5 version of Netflix BMC? Which is, if you're not familiar, Netflix BMC is the name of an add-on that lets you browse the Netflix library and then launch the Netflix video as long as you're running Windows, or does it work in Mac? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, because basically it's just it loads your library titles and everything through the Netflix API. Like you log into it with your account, and then it launches a web browser to that specific movie all ready to go.
Right.
Which has been kind of the closest we've been able to get to a seamless transition, but isn't entirely seamless. It's close, but it's you still jump from a browser to Kodi. So.
Right, and the GUI when you're watching is absolutely not the Kodi GUI. So
yeah,
the controls that you're used to aren't going to be there. I don't. So this question, whether we'll use the HTML5 version, is mostly because this user wants to do it on, I think it was either Raspberry Pi or definitely OpenELEC. And it doesn't work in either case because those platforms just don't have the support necessary. My guess is that if we ever do finally put in support for a web browser ourselves, then who knows what the future may hold. But that would happen. That would have to happen first. So we'd have to have Kodi actually have an integrated web browser, which is something we've talked about doing, but it's something we've been talking about doing for like 5 years. So who knows if and when that's going to happen.
Well, the biggest hurdle right now, and hopefully this changes, is that the little DRM module that Netflix needs to play in a browser, even though it's using HTML5, that's not available for any of the open source browsers. Chrome has it, but the open source version of Chromium, does not have access to that module.
Okay.
So only Google's Chrome and probably some of the other major ones, Internet Explorer and whatnot, they have access to that module, but open source browsers don't. So until Netflix lets us play in their playground, where our hands are tied.
Right.
Feel free to let Netflix know, by the way, that you would like to use Netflix and Kodi.
Yeah. And for all of you people who I am absolutely certain are going to correct us on this, that is fine. You can correct us all you want. But if you do correct us, please, if you could, submit the code necessary to make it work, and then we will accept that PR immediately.
We actually already have it done. We just like being a-holes.
That's right. That is true.
We're sitting on it. We use it all the time.
We use it all the time. Right. That's a special developer's build that's well hidden. So I think that's it. It looks like those were the two questions we have. That looks like we covered all the things we wanted to talk about this week. Just as a recap, that covers the Car PC Touch, the Flirt case, the Pulsate Nook adapter, Silicon Dust, Ned's cool hardware thing for Game Boy, Google Summer of Code, Bitcoin, and the two questions. So I guess next week we'll be talking about, what will we be talking about, Ned?
I think we're going to talk about what the hell was up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and not caring about any of the characters for the first season. That's going to be an entire episode.
That is actually, I do want to talk about that, because one of the points of KordKutters is to talk about cool stuff that's actually video related. So let's talk about that next week. The other thing is video nodes, which is evidently a lot cooler than I realized.
Yes, and I think my camera just turned off.
It looks like your camera died. Now we just have a really nice picture of you laughing like a chipmunk, it kind of looks like.
Oh, no. But yeah, video nodes. The other day, someone was complaining about why Kodi didn't support having separation in the library. Let me see if I can switch this over. There we go. It's a little dark. Separation in the library for different things like, say, kid shows, cartoons, anime, documentaries. And actually, Kodi does have support for it. It's not entirely polished yet. Like, there's not... you got to do some things to get it to work, and our default skin doesn't currently support customizing the home screen, but most other skins out there do. In the future, we're planning on having a new default skin that'll hopefully have those customization options, but it's as far as Cody goes, it's one of the easier things to add, actually, and it's something that a lot of people aren't aware of, that you can actually separate these things, and it's more than just your typical smart playlist, where you can actually go in and filter out kids' movies out of your normal movies node, and just have your I hesitate to say adult movies because I'm not saying porn, but your movies for adults. You can have all that in there and not have it cluttered with Disney movies or whatever, and you can have all that on your home screen. And we'll show you how to do all that and tell you about some of the improvements to that are coming up, hopefully in the future. And it's also for our next version 15. You'll be able to do the same thing with music. Music nodes are a new feature. So it's a very powerful tool. It's a lot easier than a lot of people think. Sometimes they get scared at some of the advanced features, but it works really well. And once you start using it, it's awesome.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that'll be next week. We'll kind of learn how to do that. So that does it for us this week. So to those 7 viewers currently watching, thanks for watching, and I guess we'll see you all next week. Oh, now it's 9.
Oh no, we got to do another hour.
Well, maybe not. 9 viewers who are now watching, those 2 people who just stepped in, you should watch this. It was pretty great. And for the rest of you, I'll see you all next week.
Yes.